Clive had to do this business for a month, several youngsters were left with us. They were not ours, in that we did not collect them from the streets, but were dropped off by others known only to Clive. They were 3 siblings, the oldest of which was close to school age. They'd been told they were visiting relatives. Clive and I were uncle and auntie. We had recently moved into the house, and numerous cardboard boxes stood empty in the front room. The children, still happy in their innocence, shyly moved toward the boxes, and when they realized they weren't going to be scolded for it, they made the arrangement into a game. The eldest girl, one with a lopsided ponytail, assumed the parental role, directing her younger siblings to proper behavior. In the next few minutes, everyone relaxed. The boxes became a train, an apartment building, and a school. I tried not to wilt when the boxes became a school, but my voice faltered. The oldest was a skittish child. She was 6, maybe. I didn't realize she was old enough to go to school. She acted the teacher with kind words. "Now, children, it's time to pick up your toys." And the children picked up imaginary objects from the carpet. In my best sing-song voice, I directed the children to make boxes into a theater with a front stage, backstage, and 2 side wings. "Here's where you stand when you perform," I told them. "It's called the proscenium. Do you know how to sing?" "I don't know songs, but my sister does," says the little boy, flashing his dark eyes at me. He had long eyelashes of a raven-haired beauty. "Okay, sister can sing. What shall we sing? Old MacDonald, Mary Had a Little Lamb?" "No, not that one," I thought. "It's all about something lost." "Frere Jacques," said the oldest. "All right then. Shall brother here be the sleeping boy, and when the bell rings, he can wake up and hurry off to school?" "But do you have a real bell?" asked Big Sis. I looked over the coffee table at the stack of china that would soon be used for ashtrays. "No," I said, "but maybe little sis can be the bell. Can you say din dan don?" "Din dan don," said the baby. "That's it." "Then I will go to school with my brothers," the oldest offered, "because today is the day I'm supposed to recite for the class." "Oh, that's great. What will you recite?" "It's a surprise," she said. There was a hopeful smile which quickly faded. "Perfect," I told her. "It will be a play within a play. It will be Shakespearean." So we prepared for the girl to give her special speech, everyone performing their roles flawlessly, and I wondered what she was going to say when she got her time in the spotlight. As she moved from the wings to the front stage, I directed the light from a table lamp to play over her body. She had seen a play before because she held her little hands in front of her tiny body, and she produced a fake cough before she began. "Monkeys are our friends," she said. "Monkeys sing, they build towers out of blocks, they make mud pies, and jump rope. Bigger monkeys help little ones to the lavatory and scold them if they don't wash their hands before eating. I even caught one monkey telling another one a secret." "What's the secret?" shouted the little boy, who was sitting legs folded with his dark eyes directed on his sister. "The secret," she whispered, leaning down toward his ear, "is that monkeys are really angels sent down by God to watch over us. Isn't that great? Now let's pretend to be angels and spin." The children spun and spun until they collapsed on my lap. The boy tumbled to the side and said, "I got bounced out," and the girls laughed. Later I fed them, making sure they washed their hands first, and I tucked them all into the big bed while I sat in the rocker beside them and sang them to sleep. I thought again about Raoul and my sister and I running through the theater, escaping boredom on a rainy day. Sister was it. Raoul gathered my hand, which was swallowed up in his, and at the count of 20 pulled me out of the green room into the set room off stage to the right. Our bedrooms were actually large closets off the set room. Like baby chicks, we grew up under artificial lighting. Raoul and I found an Italian village to hide in, the set for Coppelia. I easily pushed open the artificial door and pulled Raoul into the toy maker's shop. I crouched under a cutout window, but Raoul warned, "This place is too obvious. It's the first place she'll look." Following his wise advice, I kept feeling my way forward in the semi-darkness. We stole along the old outer wall, inching sideways, as if we were walking along the edge of a landing on a skyscraper, and somehow we crossed from one set into the another, the odd juxtaposition of a theater, and I picked up what I thought was a little doll, my little baby doll, but it had blood on its face, and I started to scream, and instead I drew in my breath, and Raoul recognized what I had in my hands. Taking it from me, he covered my mouth with his hand. I broke away from him and I ran, but he caught me in the stage curtain, and scooping me up with arms full of heavy velvet, not letting go, we ended up in a pile on the floor, cushioned by the left side curtain. Sissy found us rolling around and laughing. She touched Raoul, and he was it. I forgot about that moment until many years later when Sissy starred as Mama in The Bluest Eye. It was her last play at the Steppenwolf theater before Raoul moved us all to California. Seeing her wear a shapeless dress printed with brown leaves and holding that blood-spattered doll, I was filled with terror. Now, rocking and staring at the wall in front of me, I realized that the ragged plaster had been that way since we moved in a year ago, but many pieces had fallen to the floor and gotten ground into the olive carpet and brushed away by a carpet sweeper. Thank you.
Hi.
Aaron.
That's it.
I'm always afraid it's going to fall. I've had that happen once, and now I'm terrified of it. Okay, so I have a couple of poems, so I'll just read them. Okay. The first one is called Walker Lake Reflections. My surface is a perfect mirror of the blue Nevada sky. One day men came, and as they built, I thrilled at my future, a future filled with people building memories with me. They built wooden docks that jutted into my smooth, clear water, built tables, grills, and bathrooms, placed them equal distance apart, set up places for people to sleep under the blue velvet of a desert sky filled with stars. I waited, breath held, for the trucks, noise, and children. I grew giddy at the image of boats churning my placid waters into white foam. I sighed at the sound of baby giggles splashing the shore. They never came. They stuck to the highway, never stopping. I tried reaching out to them through their steel walls. Instead of boats, lovers, bathers, and babies, I feel my water recede, taken by farmers to grow onions. The second one is called Round Here, and the only thing you need to know is it's a reference to a song by the Counting Crows. Okay. My mother's knife skins long strands of peel from the potato. I stare at her deft fingers. She peels and slices with smooth motion, the whole time talking to two people at once. Without looking away from my brother, who is standing in the doorway, she hands me a long peel. It's good, she says. I take a small bite to taste the iron dirt tang, and then I take another larger bite. It is good. I watch the knife snick through the white, wet flesh 5 times. Then my mother's left hand flicks, turns the potato on its side. 5 more snicks of the knife, and perfect fat fries fall into the bowl. Our video's on, Shai says, slapping my leg. We turn toward the TV, squint at the screen that is bathed in yellow sunlight. The soft guitar leads the image of a woman walking slowly away from the camera. She carries a suitcase, and one white bra strap hangs off of her shoulder. As we sing along, the snick of Mother's knife slows until it stops. Turning, I see her humming the tune, her peeling ignored. The next day, she buys the album, asks us to read her the lyrics. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, we have 3 more readers. We have our very own beloved star, Coulbrooke, followed by Tony, how do I say your last name? Roegiers or something? Roegiers.
Oh. I think I made a mistake when I signed in. I thought it was like a wedding register.
Nothing
you can do now.
You could get up and tap dance or something like that.
Sorry, what?
You could get up and tap dance or something. No?
And, well, we'll see if Tony manifests or not. But the third person is Evan Waechther, perhaps? Waechther. All right. Well, you will be our final reader. All right. Thanks.
I thought it
might be fun to do a couple of political poems tonight. I love it the way Brock will talk about a poem and he'll give this great title, you know, and it'll be kind of a long title, and then he reads the poem and it's shorter than the title. I love those kind of poems, especially when they are so well crafted. I revise my poems too before I take them to poetry group, but they never turn out as well as Brock's do when he takes his to poetry group. Let's see. More readers? We could probably do more, because it's only 5 to 8. So if we get some people, walk around with that sign-up sheet while I read. That will distract people so they don't hear the bad parts. So I'm going to apologize for this poem because it has a cross through. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cross throughs, because I sort of revised it right now because I wanted to try it on somebody. And so you are the ones it's going to be tried on. It used to be called New Year's Lament, but that sounded too bleh. So I'm just calling it New Year, because we still are in the new year. It's only January. And I only have 3 poems. New Year. Old snow, dry as dust, dry as the climate in desert Utah, brittle grains tinged with hoarfrost. Sun peers weakly, scrim of clouds pink to top a mountain ridge, too fragile and frigid to travel. It holds, suspended in the frozen air, a new idea not yet formed, something about warmth, about thawing, such a painful process. We've slept through New Year's Eve, fireworks, gun blasts, revelry, a confetti of wishes that pock the news like deer hooves, puncturing the backyard, pointing every direction, as if they had no destination, just an aimless inclination to cut through last year's crust and render it susceptible. May it melt. Melt, I don't ski. Have you seen those huge, the huge structures that hold the power lines? They kind of march over across the mountains going to Bear Lake, and they're just enormous. And they have all this on top, and then they sort of come down like this, and then they come down like this, and they sort of stand on one little point, and you wonder how they do it until you're walking up the hill and standing next to one, and then you know. But I wrote a poem about them years ago, and the poem has been through a number of revisions, and now the poem is sort of shaped the way they are, even though it's left justified. You can see it sort of has a massive structure up here, and then it comes down to a tiny point, and it makes a point. Power lines. By the way, this poem and the next poem, which are my last 2 poems that I'm going to read for you tonight, are not only political, but they're politically infrastructural. Power lines. We turn our eyes to progress, to helicopters, cabled nets slung beneath their bellies, cradling monster erector sets, T-frames 100 feet high, latticed and riveted, crossbars jutting like elbows, set down in upright pose, a ballet on one toe. Dozens of these dancers take their stance on the swath, once an impasse of granite, maple, aspen, and pine, now a dance floor highway wide, extending for hundreds of miles, power buzzing through the wires. We ascend, years-long drought padding the trail in flower-fine dust. Above us, the vibrating air surges, prickles our skin with invisible sparks. A strange kind of energy enters our bodies, urges us on like dancers, steel frames and point across the distance as far as we can see. Under massive girders, we urge the stunted maples to defy these choreographers of clear-cut, machines that chew up mountainsides to quell the threat of fire. We dare the wires to snap, to fall in graceful arcs from the arms of their dancers, swirling and sparking, a pirouette across the skyline, a final flaming revolt. I want to thank everyone tonight for reading. Mary Ellen, you really wove some amazing stuff into that thing about the Challenger. I was in my old life at the time, and I was working at the hardware store as the wedding lady, and they had a TV in the hardware section where they would charge you 1 cent for just one little nail or screw, and if you wanted to put it on a charge account, you could, but it would cause these terrible looks of anger from the hardware man in the back, you know. And the TV came on, we saw all that smoke pluming, and we just stood there for the longest time. All the customers and all of the clerks and the wedding calls all stopped, and it was really quite eerie. It was kind of like the 9/11 thing when my sister and I went walking in the hills, and there were no jets the next day after 9/11. It was weird. So here's my other infrastructure political poem, and it's called Highway. No stopping what has now begun. Development, commercial zones, pollution, urban sprawl. Swaths of oily asphalt run straight through, no bypass roads, no other way to get from here to Idaho. No matter how we try, we can't prevent the filling in, each small town subsumed by one big metro, border to border, solidly paving us into its pall. What we started, climate change completes. Trees we planted, beetle-ravaged conifers, deciduous diseased with fungus, mildew, gall, shall die and burn, return the valley to grass. Buildings collapse, highways disintegrate. We humans turn to ash, nobody left to tell.
All right, this is under duress.
Yay!
No guts, no glory. I wrote a poem when I was 19 years old. That was 54 years ago. And I'm going to try to remember it for you. The crystals gleam like diamonds in the sun. Reflections dance upon the steepest run. And then the smallest, slightest shade of fear creeps into the mind and life becomes quite dear. They turn as one and face the other way. That run will still be there another day. Yeah.
Fancy gadgets. Most of you probably don't know me because I'm a homebody, but today I decided to come out and read for everyone. I'm an advocate of mental illness awareness. It's been very prevalent in my life. We actually just had a recent suicide attempt in my wife's family. So it's still very relevant. But I'm going to start out with a poem. I'm honestly still working on all three of these, but this first one I'm working on to submit to Scribendi. Right now it's working title 25. It is an Italian sonnet. And I do have 3 poems. 25. Falling to my knees, I confess my thoughts to darkness. Shaken from the warm embrace of God, I descend into madness. Grace fails as lines between reality and fantasy fuse. I run a cool steel razor blade across my calloused forearm. Body writhes, disgrace builds with every stroke as a word appears in trickling red. Failure. Relapse. A silence I can't seem to bear. All these years I've wasted with a 1,000-yard stare, fighting within to shed the flesh of the natural man. But I'm hopeless. 20 years I've tried to keep myself alive. The next poem is a narrative poem based on a book, a teen novel called 13 Reasons Why. And this one's still a work in progress. I'm also working on another one to parallel it. But I wanted to read this one for y'all. I remember the way her hair caught the sunlight through the classroom window in a halo of gold. The way her hips curved like a flower vase in her white and purple lace skirt. The way her smile sent my heart tapping like a snare drum. I want to feel close to her again. I walk to Eisenhower Park to remember the girl in the purple beanie. I imagine her sitting on her swing, pumping her perfect lunar legs to feel the cool breeze on her face. Her hair, the color of my grandmother's braided bread, falling past her shoulders. Her eyes a shade of blue I've only seen at dusk, when the oranges, purples, and pinks of the sun contrast the pale blue sky. Our eyes meet, and I can't look away. Her stare draws me in closer. I can hear her heart still beating. My heart beat with jealousy when Justin kissed her last summer. I was looking out my bedroom window when I saw her walk by. I couldn't help running out the front door. Now's my chance to tell her. I tripped over the buckled sidewalk, falling flat on my face. I brushed off the dirt and gravel from my palms and face and raced after her, a cheetah hunting a gazelle. Hannah, the words caught in my throat. Justin approached from the west side of the park, checking his watch. I ducked behind a tree and watched. She stood atop the red rocket ship slide, playing with the toy steering wheel. He stopped dead in his tracks and called her name. Hannah, stop playing with the trees and come see me. She said, be right down. He smiled, I'll catch you. And he did as she slid into his arms for a kiss. An angry ocean wave consumed my body in the bitter sting of loneliness. I clenched my fists and walked away to the thumping bass beat rhythm of my heart. I remember the last time I saw her, Friday after school. She had cut her hair. I never got to tell her how much I liked it that way. Her usual vibrancy was gone. She wore sorrow like a porcelain doll, powder white, emotionless. The last time I saw her, her eyes were gray, lifeless. The look that once electrified my heart now sent chills down my spine. I wanted to ask her what was wrong, what I could do, but my feet wouldn't budge, and she vanished. I pull myself away from my memories and focus on Hannah, so close I can touch her if I want to. I reach out for a lock of hair, piece of clothing, anything to prove she's alive. She reaches out to me. I take her hand, only to watch it slip slowly through my fingers. The last poem is titled Freedom. Clouds grow dark today. Rain is pouring. I walk down the stairs to my room. The sliver of light, moonlight shining through a single window, punched holes in the walls, makeshift bed on the floor, blood-stained razor blade on the dresser. This is where I'll meet my end. Father in heaven, set me free. Empty words cling to my swollen tongue. What good will they do me now? My mind goes back to you, Mother, Father, Nick and Logan, my brothers, Clarissa, my sister. Why would you abandon me? My chest tightens at the thought of leaving you. No one sees the battle I fight inside. Oh, Mother, Father, look into my lightless eyes. Look at my disfigured heart. Oh, Heavenly Father, take my life away. I shiver. I drop down to my knees in prayer and hold a revolver so quietly. God, will you rescue me?
Well, as it turns out, we've collected 3 more readers. And I think that'll be the end of the night. But we have Terysa Dyer, Shanon Branfield, and Jeremy, how do I say your last?
Gohier.
Gohier, Jeremy Gohier. All right, yay, go.
Okay, I'm just gonna read a poem. It's called Growing Up. The idea of growing up always appealed to me. I thought I was grown at 8 years old when I saw the Horse Whisperer, wept as I watched, and understood what it was to be wounded. Certainly, I felt grown at 11 years old as I talked to a boy in my class on the phone, explained the difference between anal sex and the regular kind. In my mind, though, the image was blurred. By 14, I'd grown beyond boyfriends, beyond first kisses in giant tires, rushing to put shirts back on when we heard his mom come down the stairs, beyond truth or dare. Marked by my new maturity, I embarked on the dateless duration of high school. Too busy for boys. What's so great about making out anyway? I wrote poetry for my coach, though he'd never know. He was too old, and I had so far to grow. Finally, a college coach made me feel grown when I was out on my own, and he teased me for 3 years before leaving to coach a Kansas JC team. His last week we went drinking. He bought me Blue Moons and a hotel room, kissed me on a boulder in the front yard of the bar, and told me he'd travel the world with me, fall in love, maybe, so I loved him. For a year, being grown meant each night on the phone, talking sexy until all I could say wouldn't make him stay, and I knew he had outgrown me. Now Logan has grown on me, shown a side of myself that refuses to get any older. I hold hands with my boyfriend, skip in the snow, slip and fall into piles, make strange angels. With him, I'm the age I am meant to be. The idea of growing up always appealed to me, but it's worth it, I know, because in my haste to grow up, I have grown.
And I'm just reading a poem too, but it doesn't have a title. I'm mad at titles. My mother thinks cell phones are the worst invention in history. Weapons of war causing mass casualties, chemical toxins poisoning the ground, harmless compared to that handheld encyclopedia of all things public and private. It's family time. Look up from that tiny electronic screen so you can stare at the larger electronic screen. Shh, the show's on. This is the epitome of family time, sitting silent and disconnected in the same room, not on our phones, two separate. We're watching the same show at the same time in the same place. That's togetherness, right? A bond too strong to be broken by a competing electronic device. Still, it's best to let the TV do the talking. Its words make us grin, glance at each other. Our own words are unstable, barely contained, flaring unexpectedly. Mom's domineering helpfulness, Dad's warm accent hardening into thrown curses and insults, Mom's shrill screaming and endless crying, dishes shattering, doors slamming, cars speeding away, Laura and I left in the silent room. Shh, the show's on. Put your phone away. Let the TV fill the silence.
Hey, this is a short piece I wrote a couple years ago when I was shopping for a new car. It's called You Always Remember Your First. My first car was born the same year I was. This was not the first car I drove. That car was haunted, which is another story. And technically that was my mom's car anyway. But the first car I paid my own money for that had my name on the title was a 1983 Toyota Tercel, a dark tan boxy hatchback with just enough rust to make her look cheaper than she really was. I didn't mind. It was those rust spots that caused the previous driver to give the car back to her mother, saying it was hurting her image to drive around campus. Which meant that her mother, who also happened to be my boss, was looking for someone to take a rusty car off her hands for $500. Besides, I have a few rust spots myself. Now I realize she may not sound like much. Typically you get what you pay for, and most days $500 just doesn't buy a whole lot of car. But sometimes it's worth looking past the rust to find out what's under the hood. In Tracy's case, as I eventually named the car, a glance at the odometer was enough to turn my head. 90,000 miles. She was as old as I, and she hadn't even breached the 6-digit barrier. This was not a desperate car on her last legs that someone was trying to make a quick buck off. This car had simply been shuffled around for 2 decades without ever really finding a home. Maybe I could relate. No, she wasn't perfect. For a start, her speedometer didn't work. Living in Randolph, Utah, you can get away with that for a while, but it only took one ticket coming out of Logan Canyon before I decided it would be cheaper to replace the thing. I found a used console cluster online and put it in myself. It's not quite as easy as it might sound. Actually installing the cluster was a simple insert tab A into slot B kind of thing. But getting Tracy to open up to that sort of thing meant gently coaxing her out of layers and layers of overlapping dashboard sections that weren't exactly designed for easy access. If you're a Saturday Night Live fan, you may have seen the sketch about the Mercury Mistress, the car you can share your most intimate moments with. This was nothing like that. It was more like getting to know someone during a quick change for a dance concert. Pulling each other's clothes off and throwing new outfits on with nothing more than a few carefully positioned curtains between you and thousands of eager eyes is a good way to get to know someone really well, really fast. Especially when you know that in any other setting, even suggesting such actions would earn you a slap across the face at best. There's a kind of trust born in the darkness of stage wings. That's what I had with Tracy. She and I could trust each other. I took care of her when she wasn't running on all cylinders, and she took care of me when the going got rough. I knew how she handled, and I knew which noises meant she needed a little extra TLC. And I fully believe I would still be driving that car today, if it wasn't for the deer. I was rounding a corner on I-80, headed back to school after pulling a 40-hour weekend shift at a youth ranch academy. They had staff beds on site, so I wasn't driving drowsily or anything, but it was nearing midnight on a Sunday, and I had an oral exam in French Monday morning, so I was cruising at a comfortable 75 miles an hour, which I thought was the speed limit, though my brother was surprised I didn't get a ticket when I told the cop the next day. Einstein said time is relative, and I'm inclined to agree with him, because the moment the deer appeared in my headlights was a fraction of a second and an eternity all at once. Then the moment was over and everything went dark. I felt myself come to a stop and took a few moments to make sure I was still breathing. My trembling hand found the door latch, and I stepped out into the autumn night. Passing cars threw splashes of light across me in a kind of slow-motion strobe light effect as I surveyed the scene. There was no sign of the deer, other than what it had done to Tracy, whose front end now resembled an accordion. It was later, riding in the back of my brother's car, when I realized what those accordion wrinkles meant. When my brother's car went off the road, he ended up in a neck brace for a week. But as I examined Tracy's corpse, the thought never crossed my mind to worry about what might have happened to me. She was too old to have modern safety features like airbags, but when push came to shove, she didn't need them. She just took it all like a champion. I walked away, but Tracy never drove again. Sure, I loved my first car, but she loved me too. At least I'm pretty sure that's what the Bible calls it. So when I tell you I'm looking for a car I can trust, that's what I'm talking about. The newer models might be prettier or have flashier toys, but can I trust them to take care of my kids one day? And if it means knowing that my car will be there when I need it, and will do what it takes to make sure life goes on, even after running head-on into a couple 100 pounds of wildlife, then I can overlook a few rough spots. Thank you.